สวัสดีค่ะ Good evening Welcome to Thai PBS World Tonight You are now with คุณเทพชัยหย่อง and me นัทธาโกมลวาทิน
Good evening สวัสดีครับ
Yes and right now it's the very first time that Prime Minister is addressing to the whole nation since the crisis of COVID-19 has happened so let's take a look what he has to say So this is the very first time that Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha is addressing the whole nation.
เพราะหากติดเชื้อแล้วจะมีอาการหนักนะครับและมีโอกาสเสียชีวิตสูงการหลีกเลี่ยงการไปสถานที่แออัดก็เช่นกันนะครับที่อากาศถ่ายเทไม่สะดวกเพราะมีโอกาสจะแพร่เชื้อหากหลีกเลี่ยงไม่ได้ควรจะสวมหน้ากากอนามัยแล้วก็ยืนห่างกันอย่างน้อย1 เมตรโดยเฉพาะยิ่งผู้เจ็บป่วยไม่สบายรู้สึกไม่สบายควรอยู่บ้านนะครับต่อไปก็คือการกักตุนของนะครับอย่าเพิ่งไปกักตุนของอย่าวิตกนะครับกังวลจนเกินไปนะครับก็มีการยืนยันมาแล้วว่ามีความพร้อมในการดูแลเรื่องเหล่านี้นะครับขอให้มีความเชื่อมั่นในรัฐบาลเราจะจัดการให้มั่นใจได้ว่าจะมีหน้ากากอนามัยเครื่องอุปโภคบริโภคและสิ่งจำเป็นที่ต้องใช้อย่างเพียงพอนะครับคราวนี้อยู่ในขั้นตอนการปรึกษาหารือหาแนวทางหาจำนวนให้เพิ่มขึ้นนะครับขอความร่วมมือกับผู้ที่ยังไม่มีอาการไม่มีประวัติเสี่ยงติดเชื้อและแพทย์วินิจฉัยแล้วว่ายังมีความจำเป็นต้องตรวจ
The Prime Minister has to say regarding the crisis of COVID-19 in which today the Public Health Ministry has announced that we have 32 more cases in Thailand just today.
Yes. His address follows a meeting today of a committee to fight against the coronavirus. It's a committee that the Prime Minister himself chairs. And for the first time, the committee today came up with probably one of the most, I would say, the most comprehensive package of measures to deal with the pandemic. And of course, the measures, some are quite stringent.
Yes.
And especially the one that deals with mass or public gatherings. That means that if the measure is approved by the cabinet tomorrow, that means that mass gatherings in sporting venues or in theaters or in other places will be banned.
Yes, and I think what people would like to hear the most is about the final decision regarding long holidays of Songkran holidays. And today in the press conference, they said they will propose to cancel the holiday of Songkran between 13 to 15 of April. But it will be officially announced tomorrow after the cabinet meeting.
This is a traditional Songkran holiday, but the government, the cabinet, a few weeks ago adopted a policy that would extend the holiday to 5 days. I mean, giving Thai people additional holidays for Songkran. But because of the outbreak, the committee in charge of preventing coronavirus today decided that the holiday, well, it will be maintained, but will be moved to some other time in the future until the situation returns to normal.
Yes, probably it will be postponed until July. That's the date, that's the month which has been announced, but we will have to wait until official announcement tomorrow.
Okay. The decision was made on the basis that during that period there would be a mass movement of Thai people. As we all know that tens of thousands of Thai would, in big cities like Bangkok, would go back to their hometowns in the provinces. And the fear is that these people would be, some of them anyway, would be bringing the virus back to their hometowns and get other people there affected. Or otherwise, the opposite would happen, that contracting the virus from people in up country. So this is the reason why this decision was made. But it doesn't mean that people will be stopped from splashing water at each other, which is part of the tradition. But of course, the mass movement of people will be prevented.
Yes, and the other topic that the Prime Minister just referring to is about panic buying. And over the weekend, we have many photos spread around in, especially in the social media, how the shelf in many supermarket, many department stores have been very empty, especially on necessary items that people may need in terms of their supplies in their daily life. And now we see how the queue in the supermarket is quite long over the weekend, because people must be quite uncertain in terms of the announcement whether Bangkok will face partial lockdown or whatever circumstance that people have been predicted.
That's right. The chaotic scene we are seeing on the screen right now was quite familiar over the weekend. If we go to any other grocery stores over the weekend, we would see this kind of hectic stockpiling by people. And the panic buying was prompted by a rumor that sooner or later Thailand would be put in a lockdown.
Yes.
That means that people would be prevented from traveling or even leaving their houses. So the rumor, which was quickly squashed, said that in the matter of days, the government would announce this stringent measure to deal with the outbreak. But in fact, the stockpiling of essential goods or panic buying is not happening only in Thailand. Few other countries like Australia,
yes,
in the US or UK, have also seen this kind of chaotic scenes with people queuing up and fighting to get all the essential items that they think are most needed.
Yes. And in order to hear more and to understand more about this panic buying, right now we have Kun Visit Lim Loo Cha, President of Thai Food Processor Association with us. สวัสดีค่ะคุณวิสิต
สวัสดีครับคุณเทพชัย and คุณนัทธาครับ
So how are you? Are you okay?
It's okay. It's been a long day today.
All right.
Yes.
So you must have seen the chaotic scenes at many of the grocery stores over the weekend, right? So what do you think?
Yeah, I think the problem is on this weekend because there's a rumor, as you said, and also the fake news said that our country or city will be locked down. So a lot of people is going out to the supermarket and buy a lot of things to stock at home because they also have seen some news from abroad that some countries they close the countries across the city. So this is a kind of a panic in Bangkok, right?
So what do you want to say, to help calm down these people? Because the rumor that you just mentioned has been disputed already, that the country is not going to be in a lockdown mode anytime soon. Yeah.
Yes, we are a food manufacturer. We are a top 11 exporting country of the global ranking of food business. So we can be sure that we have enough food in Thailand. Even we have a very good farms. We have a good plantations. We have enough fish. We have enough lobster. We have a lot of things that can be replaced what we lack at each time. So in 1 year, we can produce food to serve a lot of people. Last year, we have about 40 million tourists coming to Thailand. We can serve them all. So this year, the tourists is maybe, I think, only about 10 million or something. So this is one reason that you can share the food from tourists to everyone in Thailand. This is the first reason. And the second reason is that we are a real food manufacturer. We have everything. I think something is ready to eat. Something we can harvest from the plantation anytime you want. If you go to somewhere urban, you can find fish, you can find rice, in the plantation area. Everything we have in our own country. Compared to other countries that they have problems. They are not the real food production, not a real food producer. So the situation will be much different.
Yes.
So I can confirm that we have enough food for Thai people.
Yeah, but buyers perhaps they are quite worried with the supply chain to various supermarkets all over the country, not only in Bangkok. How do you see the situation different from the big flood in Bangkok several years ago?
Pardon, the sound is not clear, I'm sorry.
Yes, because people face difficulty during flood problem in Bangkok, especially about several years ago. And people may be worried with supply chain to each supermarket.
Okay. This is we can compare this time and the time that we have some flood. We have a big flood maybe last 10 years. This is much different. At that time, the street is cut off, and we cannot send some raw material to the producer, and the producer cannot send the finished product to somewhere. So, but now the situation is totally different. We can use a full transportation system now in Thailand, every province. So the raw material can go directly to the producer, to the manufacturer. The manufacturer can produce because they still have enough labor, enough machine and producing, and after that send to maybe sell abroad or sell in domestic. We can ship our goods to every supermarket in Thailand. So this is totally different from the big flood.
So, Kun Visit, your message is don't panic, don't stockpile food because the grocery stores have enough to meet everybody's needs, right?
Right. We can stock some, but not that much like the weekend. Like last weekend, because people are in a very serious and panic. And maybe one of your friends buy something in the supermarket, post in the social media, and you see that photo. So you think that why don't you buy something because your friend already already prepared for the situation. Why don't you buy? So this one is I think the wrong message.
I see. Become a mass panic then. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much for
joining
giving
us.
us the assurance that there will be enough for everyone. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kun Thepattai.
Thank you. As we mentioned, this kind of panic buying is not common only in Thailand at this moment. In Australia, Kun Natha, as we have seen, there was some even violence involved in the fight to be the first men to get what they think was so necessary. And in one incident, 3 women got into a fight in an Australian supermarket on Saturday. And the video clip of the fight was shown on national TV. And this is what a new celebrity, Miss Lisa Wilkinson, has to say about this incident. And what she says certainly reflects the real situation in Australia. She said, images of people physically attacking each other over rolls of toilet paper would have been simply unimaginable just a few weeks ago. But for anyone who has been to the supermarket in the last couple of days, we know right now it's a case of survival of the fittest and sadly the fiercest. I mean, she summed it up quite well to explain the situation that was happening in Australia.
Yes, but to take comment of Kun Visit, it means that Thailand won't face shortage of supply, especially necessary items. So perhaps it's time for thinking of sharing instead of fierce fighting to try to get all the daily product. And in Thailand, it's also like a wake-up call, Kun Thepchai, especially with the case of celebrity. since we heard of Kun Matthew Dean was infected with the case of COVID-19 on Friday. And today, his wife, a famous singer, Kun Lydia Saranrat, has also wrote on her IG that she's also infected of the COVID-19. And that's what she said, that she perhaps has contracted the virus from her husband. And she said she had not been outdoors. She believes that she caught the disease from her husband, and that there is a high possibility that other people in the family will also have been infected. She said she developed flu-like symptoms, including dry cough, stuffy nose, and fever on the night of 13th of March, adding that she took pills to reduce her fever and vitamins to keep in good shape while waiting test results. So right now, she said the most difficult aspect of this infection is to be far away from her baby daughter because they will be without their parents during her quarantine, but at least there are grandparents to look after them. That's what he said.
Yeah, and also reported to be infected with coronavirus is Major General Rachid Arunangsi, commander of the Army Welfare Department of the Royal Thai Army. And the problem is that he has been in close contact with another 36 Army officers. And these officers are now being isolated, and they will be so for the next 14 days. And one of the 36 officers happened to be a very senior but unidentified officer in the Royal Thai Army.
So we are hearing more of well-known cases of celebrity, well-known people who got infected. And not only in Thailand, Kun Thepchai, because around the world we can see how the world leaders have actively reacting to widespread of the pandemic of COVID-19, especially President Trump. On Friday night of Thailand time, he's finally announced national emergency situation in the US. So let's take a look what the US president has to say.
Release the full power of the federal government in this effort today. I am officially declaring a national emergency. Two very big words.
Are you being selfish by not getting tested and potentially
Well, I didn't say I
exposing-
wasn't going to be tested.
Are you going to be?
Most likely, yeah. Most
When do
likely.
you think
Not for
that'll
that reason,
happen?
but because I think I will do it anyway.
Will you let us
Fairly
know the
soon.
results?
We're working on that. We're working out a schedule.
Yeah.
You know, when it gets
Come on.
So that's President Trump having conversation with reporters, because after he announced national emergency case, reporter asked him whether he had his own physical tested. And in the beginning, he said he didn't say that he have it tested, but it revealed later that he got the test, and it turned out later that it's negative. So it means that President Trump is not infected with the virus as far as we know.
I don't have an answer for that.
So that's the situation in the US. And on top of the US, we also see how Italy and Spain announced some partial lockdown of the country as well. And in Buriram today, there is more announcement of partial lockdown of the province. And right now we have Kun Prinn Panichpakdi, Deputy Leader of the Democrat Party and Head of Economics Team of the Democrat Party joining us. สวัสดีค่ะคุณปริน
Kunatha, you should keep a little distance away from
yes.
Kun Prinn.
And we prepared this for you. You can have Angel.
Okay.
Yes. Because we got comment from our audience that we sat too close with our guests and the two
No, but Kun Prinn has
moderators.
been subject to a screening process before he was allowed to enter the
Yes.
studio, so
Yeah.
he's safe.
Yeah, so at least we keep proper distance. So it's been said a lot about economic impact of COVID-19, not only around the world, but in Thailand as well. And you are head of economic team in the Democrat Party. So today we like to focus more on economic impact. And you must have learned a lot about stock market as well. So What do you see? What's your take?
Yes, as you both understand that this is a healthcare crisis, but it has a huge global implications on the economics issue and the social issue, both from the psychological point of view as well as the real lives that affect many people. I think from the economics point of view, you are seeing both the disruption on both the demand side and the supply side that will undoubtedly take times to recover. And this is a big issue because I think the world was not ready for this. If you look at the investment into the healthcare facilities in the last few years, yes, it's incrementally edging up, but compared to the investment in the so-called digital new economy and the software infrastructure, as well as the infrastructure on the so-called, let's say, high-speed train or the road, the rails, those investments probably outpace the incremental new investment into the healthcare sector, especially ones that would build a capacity for us to deal with such a global epidemic that we kind of facing like this. And especially Thailand, a country where economically, yes, we are not poor and we have some money to spend, but nevertheless, I think the spending that has not been channeled through the so-called social infrastructure investment mean that whether it's education, public health care, whether it's basic infrastructure and the water management, those are badly in need of those investments and slack.
And this crisis shows.
And yes, when, as people say, when the tides turn the other way, turn down, you see the skeletons come out, and sadly, it hits us right where the economy would have been difficult anyway without the COVID-19. This virus exposed our weaknesses.
I see. I'm sure Kun Prinn, as you are watching the crisis, you must be asking yourself, if I'm the leader of this country right now, what would I do? What should I do?
Well, first of all, the leader should lead and should take responsibility. And I say that not lightly. I think the leader cannot shy away from responsibility and push it to various ministries. Don't push it to one minister, the other minister. No, I mean, the leader has to lead. You've seen several examples around the world, but the leader has lead and shown both the communication skill, the vision, the ability to calm the public down from the panics, and the ability to instill confidence and motivate the frontline staff, especially those in the medical fields, those at the airports, those in the airlines, or whichever key industry that are the front line of this virus attacks, to make sure they are staying motivated, healthy, and make sure there are enough protection insurance for those people. That's one thing that we need to do. Secondly, the leader must not take short-sighted measures, meaning that any measures that are being given out or being pushed forward at the moment, whether it's the economically stimulus package, this must not be politically motivated and cannot be short-term. I've heard a few words which are a little bit worrying that's coming out from this government early on, whether it's the handout of this 1,000 baht per month or whatever. And I've asked my friends in the Ministry of Finance, why are you doing this? I've given a few lectures, a few seminars, a few talks to you. This is not is what needed. We don't need short-term stimulus. And they all say, oh, those politicians want political points. And I'm like baffled. Because the leader needs to lead by example, and in this tough time, you will see the quality of real leadership or bad leaders come through.
And you yourself don't think you have seen that kind of leadership that you think is needed?
We think this country has seen a real lack of leadership, and I think people are rightly disappointed in the leadership so far that's coming from our leader, and we think that the integrated efforts that we need, like in Tam Luang when you saw the cave issue, there was integrated effort from the private sector, public sector, showing the leadership come together and got through it. This time around, the crisis is much larger. And to be fair, you cannot blame just the government. I mean, you have to see responses that are coming from the public at large as well. They have to be disciplined. They have to be, I guess, in some certain aspects, willing to be more careful at how they consume news, especially bad news that come through fake news, and make them panic and go and do all the wrong actions that are causing people to be psychologically damaged more than their health damaged.
Their reactions can be sometimes very irrational, very emotional, right?
Yes.
Something we have learned from this crisis, that people get easily swayed by what they one paragraph or one sentence of comments.
But again, this is where leadership has to come from the government that needs to communicate one clear message to the population to instill them the confidence of the latest situation, what's going on, to be transparent about all the measures that are being taken to make sure that the public are aware of the situation.
But we just see how the Prime Minister just have the first addressing to the nation just right now, and perhaps tomorrow the cabinet will have a meeting and have a formal decision regarding long Songkran holiday and the ban of mass gathering. Do you think it will exacerbate the whole situation, make it worse, or is it the right track?
I think it is the right track. I mean, the other thing I would say is that it's been a little bit too long coming or delayed, because we are fighting a virus, and I'm saying this is a healthcare crisis first and foremost. It's not an economic crisis, but a healthcare crisis can morph into a huge global economic crisis or a national economic crisis if we don't careful of what we are tackling. We have to balance. Yes, I understand the difficult choices that are facing the government in between balancing some vested interests or economic interests and business interests that can be have in a country like Thailand, which is a big open economy with a big tourism industry. But at the moment, who has the heart and in the right frame of mind to go out or to party or to go on tourism? You know, it's a tough one, but you have to set the priority in the right order. And at the moment, you have to fight the virus. You have to contain the virus. You have to fight it. You have to make sure the public is aware of the serious situation, but not to be too panicky. But in that installation of the confidence to the people, you have to let the people believe in you that you are handling this crisis in an orderly manner, in a right priority fashion. And that could mean that we need to maybe perhaps closing down on some public events, on some function, on school, on public bars and pubs and gatherings. So I think these are the right steps that they're heading. Yes, there will be some economic impact negatively for the tourism industry in the short term, but those costs could be far worse if the virus were to spread and would ruin the long-term, both the confidence in managing of the government as well as the actual industry itself.
What do you think of the decision regarding stock exchange of Thailand? Because we can see how the investors are really panicked when they heard something quite negative. What should be the decision? Postponement or short?
I think
closure.
I used to be on the board of governor of Stock Exchange of Thailand, and we have a few debates on this, like whether if there is a political uncertainty, like a coup occur, or when there is a big new economic measures, or when there's a political instability and the stock market drop a lot. We always discuss about range of measures that would so-called support the stock exchange, support the investor. But to be true, stock exchange is 46 years old. It is pretty mature. It's pretty old. Sure, while there are new investors, while there are some immature investor, speculative investors, what the job the stock exchange needs to do is to provide a transparent, open, timely information for the investors. That's the job of the exchange, and make sure that the mechanism of orders, whether input, trade, buy, sell, are fair to all traders. For example, now we're competing with robots. If robots can get unfair advantage over human, that is not good. In order for this crisis to go through, I do not agree that we need any supportive measure for the stock exchange nor for the investor. I think we need to focus our priority and our attention in the areas that we need to do, i.e. the frontline staff, the medical staff, the doctors, the nurses, make sure the hospitals and even the key frontline staff are well taken care of. The stock market will look after itself and it will recover when confidence returns. So the government must ensure that they prioritize the right things in order, and then stop. They're rich. They're relatively better off people. Put it that way.
Okay.
While there are some pension fund and whatnot in there, there are very smart people who are investing in the stock market. So I'm a little bit coy on the side of there's no need to support the stock market too much.
No, but finally, the Deputy Prime Minister, Kun Visanu Krungam, came up with a rather assuring, comforting message today, saying for the first time that saving people's life is priority. Economic impacts or other problems are secondary to this. And you're glad to hear that kind of statement from the government.
Well, yes. I mean, I think that's the sort of statement that should be from day one. I mean, the priority is not when you're fighting a healthcare crisis. The priority is that if the healthcare stop the spread of the virus, then the economics will crash either way anyway. You already see disruption. So in order for the disruption not to be prolonged or not to be hurt much more, you need to save people's lives, and people's healthcare situation is the priority. So I think the government understandably has a difficulty in balancing the interests and the business interests and the, from all various sectors. But I'm glad that the representative come out to reiterate this important point.
But do you think the government might have underestimated the gravity of the crisis from the very beginning?
I think they always knew from day one it could be difficult, it could be a big one, but I think they also didn't want to cause the original panic to the people. So they were handling this as if hopefully we can contain it. We have great healthcare, I think we have very good quality doctors.
There's
in
no
Thailand.
question about that.
No question about that. That's why the death ratio has been very low in Thailand relative to when you measure the death ratio versus the people who've caught the disease. It's been very low, and it still remains low, which is good. And I hope it will stay that way. I hope no more deaths will come through. But having said that, I think now that the severity of the virus spread is pretty clear and pretty evidence of how different countries around the world are dealing, we need to come to senses and realize the real priority that sometimes we talk about having self quarantine for Thai person coming back from say South Korea, China, Italy, Iran to have 14-day self-quarantine. But what about the foreigners who are tourists who come from those countries? Can you enforce self-quarantine on them? It's more difficult. So in reality, Singapore has already imposed ban by destination. Sure, they allowed Singaporeans to come back from those destinations, but they ban foreign tourists or they ban people who come from those key danger zones to come in. And Singapore has done this for almost a few weeks already to quite successful as well. So I think we might have to consider measures that are very close to that.
So you think Thailand should be clearer with all the guidance of the quarantine?
I think so. I think this is not a time to be weak and to be nibbling and be careful and trying to toy on balance or be what's the word เกรงใจ to be too careful about upsetting someone. This is about saving people's lives, as you mentioned correctly. So to save people's lives, to prevent the spread of the virus, sometimes you may need to close the town, the city, or the key danger zone for a couple of weeks and assess the situation. And as things get better, you can fine-tune the measures as things improve. But we cannot take this lightly.
But locking down Thailand the way the Italians have been doing, you don't think it's something that's too much for Thailand to do, right?
I don't think so. I think there are still people who've been, as you can see how the virus has spread, it comes back from people who travel usually, and people who go to crowded gatherings. So yes, the government is taking the right step to ban the crowded gatherings or to try to get the local governments to discourage, to move the Songkran celebration a little bit further down the road and things should hopefully be better. But in all seriousness, I mean, we want to maintain good relationships with all our foreign friends and partners, but communicating to them and asking them for understanding and cooperation in this difficult time, as a friend would do to each other, is what is needed. We're not banning as if we are hating them or don't like them, but now the severity of the virus is pretty clear to everyone in the world. 130 countries have caught it. So if you allow all this normality of travel activities to go on from difficult countries that are seeing huge spread of virus, that is, you risk endangering the population of your own country, and that would ruin the credibility of the government in handling the situation. So I don't think there's a weak measures.
Yeah, but the first step in Thailand has been taken. Partial lockdown in Buriram province already.
Well, you see this.
That's good.
Buriram is taking the lead now.
But you see this. It's not good for the government and it's not good for the leader. If you have to follow the lead in Buriram, the central government should show leadership.
Yeah.
But it could be served as a wake-up call for the government.
Sure. I mean, but I just thought the government would come to their own senses and understand the severity of this virus enough to lead rather than follow a province.
Yeah. Perhaps you will see more clearer measure tomorrow after the cabinet meeting.
So coming back on the issue of the planned cash handout, which was later, overturned by the Prime Minister. Kun Prayut, the Prime Minister said, well, this thing didn't come out of the blue. We took it, it's a leaf taken from a book of countries like as Hong Kong or some other countries. So what do you think? That's his argument.
But you see, it's a wasted bullet. Even in Hong Kong cases, if you argue among economists in Hong Kong or investors in Hong Kong, they would argue this is a wasted bullet. Economic stimulus in the short term do not work. There's a Thai word, ตำน้ำพริกละลายแม่น้ำ I'm not sure what the English word could be. You're wasting a bullet. This is a very important. Thailand has some cash. Yes, we have some stimulus packages we can do, but those stimulus must be targeted fiscal stimulus. So make it clear, monetary policy for Thailand to stimulate monetary policy cutting rates doesn't help too much. It may help the confidence or psychology a little bit in the near term, but it doesn't help too much. So the targeted fiscal stimulus can help, can be effective, but you have to target at the right sector, the people who matter the most, to keep their confidence, maintain their level of confidence and the willingness to work, incentivize them, whether it's a bonus for the medical sector, the doctors, the frontline nurses, the staff who are working huge overtimes that you need to maintain them on your side, people at the airport, people at the key immigration officers, make sure they have the right medical equipment, the right sanitation, the right insurance, make sure free testing for population in Thailand, and possibly free, the whole treatment for people who get COVID-19. So this will take money. Why would you hand out 1,000 baht, 2,000 baht, or why would you do more chim chop chai? It's not going to help. And I think the Ministry of Finance, civil servants have warned the people who are in charge at that ministry, who have warned the minister responsible that they should not be using short-term political stimulus to do this. It should not go through. And in this tough time, the social infrastructure investment needs to be lifted, and you have to plan ahead. So yes, short term to help key, but the longer term plan on the social infrastructure investment, especially in healthcare, you need to build it up over time and be ready for the next epidemic, which will come in the next 5 to 10 years.
But I believe those in the government are not stupid people. So why do you think they would come up with such an idea that you?
Well, you'd be surprised. People can behave irrationally and can be, we wouldn't call them stupid, but can take a wrong decision in difficult times. And you have to understand that when people are under pressure, they have to balance some time between a political decision.
You need to be seen to be doing something.
And you have to be seen doing something in the short term. So yes, I do sympathize with the key cabinet ministers, but on the other hand, that is what's separate between the boys and the adults. You have to decide the priority. You have to decide what is the real interest and the real priority of saving lives and really.
If you compare this with the Tom Yam Goong crisis in 1997, what's the level of the difference of the crisis? And back then, we had social safety net in Thailand with the fund to help support, especially small and medium-sized people and individual people. Do you think that the government should implement the same plan this time?
Yeah, it's a very different crisis because that was a financial crisis, and that comes about because of leverage and because of bad governance and so on and so forth. This one, the crisis could end very quickly if a country discover a vaccine to kill this. So yes, it could be over within the next 1 or 2 or 3 weeks if you get the right vaccines to kill this. But you can't just pray and hope on the right vaccine or hope that the summer would kill the virus away. You have to have the right plan as well if things go wrong, or plan B or plan C. So I think the comparison may be difficult. You're not comparing an apple to orange, but nevertheless, the economics impact could be huge. There'll be disruption, to supply chain, but also to the both demand and supply. So, there's no demand there at the moment, and the supply chain is being disrupted. So when the demands do come back, how fast can the supply ramp up to cover all this? That will be key. So that's why I say it's so crucial to make sure that the health of the people, the workforce, the labor stay healthy, because demand will come back. Natural demand will eventually come back and pick up when the vaccine is found and when the virus is contained. But you need to contain it first and to find a vaccine first. So priorities need to be set.
But overall, do you think the world is facing global recession?
The interesting thing, I think I was on your program and also various on the Money Channel before, almost a year and a half ago, saying that we will face a recession, nevertheless, with or without a virus. But the virus have accelerated that recession potential. And yes, the longer this virus scare and the spread goes on, the quicker the recession you will see. And I think it's pretty evident now that we're likely to see one this year.
But how do you see the President Trump's handling of the situation? I think it's no less chaotic than in Thailand. What do you see here in Thailand?
It's a different kind of chaos because he started by saying that there are people, people dying from flu anyway, and then he had to go through the test himself. But it's different kind of issues. But once he acted, I think he pretty quickly banned the flights, you see, from Europe, and he pretty quickly, being pretty quickly decisive. So And there are various ways of handling this crisis. Different countries have their own different culture, different ways of doing things. But I think we have to act as if this virus can last for months or many more months.
But is it like a wake-up call for the whole international economy? Because it's showing how the whole world is dependent very much on Chinese economy. from this crisis?
I think it's also correct, yes, but also is that how the world is connected, how much the world is really integrated and more connected. We know about globalization already, but now we have really see how global supply chain are really very intertwined and very deeply connected, and how businesses are done and how different people can catch by just traveling or by going to the various different countries that you never thought you can catch this kind of disease and bring back home and spread it among your friends and family. So it is a big wake-up call that the international community in the world need to prioritize the social infrastructure investment that I say has been lacking behind the digital investment in software, coding, hardware, computing power, or even high-speed rail that we mentioned about people who've been building rails and roads and whatever to nowhere, but you lack this education investment, healthcare investment that I would call the most important investment that you need to make this century, the social infrastructure.
I think for Thailand, this can also be a rude awakening. I mean, it just goes to show how much dependent that we have to be on China, especially in the tourist segment. So I don't think things will go back to be the same again. So how do you foresee the impact of this after this whole thing is over?
I've never liked the fact that we too heavily relied on tourism industry to grow our economy. I've never liked that fact because that comes with a lot of costs and baggages and reliance on other economies, and also ruining sometimes, using up our national resources too wasteful sometimes, and even our human capital. I would still like to see that this is a wake-up call that we should look at our efforts, that if tourism, then are we in a space where it's a premium tourism? Is it going to really, the money comes and help the grassroots people, not goes towards a super platform? No offense to them, but Booking.com, Agoda, they have to pay taxes and they have to pay the right dues to society. And even when it comes to Grab, to Airbnb, they have to abide by local laws and pay tax. So this is need the whole chain of think through what is national strategy. There is a national strategy, the 20-year plan. Have people read it? I doubt it. Most people probably haven't read it and complain about it. But the plan is pretty detailed and pretty good one to readdress all this problem and have a real sustainable growth. You need to go through that plan for a sufficiency economy. To apply that correctly, you need that plan to be in use, and we have to think through how we implement that plan.
Yeah. For the immediate situation from economist point of view, how do you like to advise people who are really panicked right now economically, especially for small and medium-sized entrepreneurs?
Well, first advice would be to the government. I hope the government would come up with a serious, for the what money is left after they help the frontline staff and medical staff and whatnot. I think the SMEs and the startups, the SME in particular, are needing help. And this is a role where Bank of Thailand can help, not by cutting rates, but Bank of Thailand should be proactive at speaking to the various commercial banks to delay the payments, interest payment, to even freezing the payment, to restructure the loans, and this can help SME because cash flow is lacking in this kind of difficult time from exceptional healthcare crisis like this. You need people to renegotiate the loans, the interest payment. You need SME packages to be help the smallest people. So that's for the government and for the Bank of Thailand. But I think for the people at large, it's often difficult to tell them not to panic because whatever politicians say now, if you say don't panic, they'll panic even more. So I'm not going to say don't panic, but I think people are sensible enough now. So one thing I would say is that you need to have a bit of digital intelligence. So when you consume news, if it doesn't come from Pinatta, don't believe it too much. Only joking, but you have to be careful about when you consume bad news. Especially there's plenty of bad news out there, and it can impact your psychology, impact your action. Just be more careful and use your mindset, have a bit more sati or more, intuition, and be more careful about seeing this and spreading the news and sharing on the news. That's very important. And you see an example in Hong Kong, it panicked for maybe a week and a half, and then people calm down. In Singapore as well, there was a little panic on the mass as well for maybe less than a week, and then they stopped the panic. But again, the role for the government to educate people, the right communication message.
That's a key.
It is so important.
It's a key.
And actually, lastly, the message for the press. And this is not to both of you because you are. I hope the Thai press, especially, could be more responsible.
Less sensational.
Less sensational. Less blaming people. Less. We're in this all together, and the country needs to move forward on a unity fashion in crisis. This is not the time to be blaming people. You can do that later to synopsis or to analyze what went wrong, what went right. That's later when after you save people's lives. But if the press has to play a role, a constructive one, the press needs to be at the forefront, in the front line as well.
I'm sure you must be as curious as anyone else about why all of a sudden there's been a shortage of surgical masks, right? Have you had a chance to talk to Kun Jurin?
Well, I tell you the real reason. The amount that surgical masks that are produced or manufactured domestically is never going to be enough in a panic situation anyway. So when people don't believe that there were enough masks, they panic and they bought masks. So first of all, the mathematics, 30 odd million masks per month is not enough for 60 odd million people if they decide saying one mask is not enough for me, or one mask a day, or one mask every 3-4 days is not enough. I'm going to save 10 more, 20 more, or there are some bad traders out there, and there's some bad naughty ones who some has been punished already, some has been caught, and various investigations are going through all this, and I hope those investigations will be transparent, will be open to the public, and will bring charges against some people who did the wrong, which they could become to that. But the mass itself, we have to understand the capacity itself is not enough in the first place in a panic. So it's no point to blame. I partly feel sorry that I'm not saying I feel sorry. It's unfair to blame this person, blame that person, but you can't just blame it on one person saying you're responsible for the mass disappearing or that person, because the capacity itself was never going to be enough.
Overall, what's the opportunity you can see coming out of this crisis?
Well, the first of all, I
silver lining of that.
I think I hope it will wake up call, as we discussed, to governments around the world to invest more in the social infrastructure, which is badly needed, especially both in education and healthcare, which I think the social infrastructure has been lacking in this century so far. I hope that people are thinking that this is the time that sometimes we were too heavily reliant too much on an industry. When a shock like this occurs, you're going to see big domino negative impact as well. So reliance on tourism industry, we have to think about how do we increase research and development investment into a more higher value add industry. We are a consumer of technology, but we're not a inventor or a producer of technology. As a result, our innovation curve is down here. So how do we then shift this from too heavily reliant on export and tourism into one where better more on gear towards innovation and a better, more value-added industry. Lastly, I was hoping for unity. I was hoping we'll see some national unity after this. It may be difficult in the face right now, but as we go through the crisis, I hope Thai people will come to senses and have a national unity over this issue rather than playing politics.
And that means the Democrat Party is standing by the government without wavering in any way, right? Despite all the scandals.
As you know, the Democrat Party, we allow freedom of speech for our member of parliament, but often freedom of speech should also come with responsibility, especially in time of crisis like this. I don't think the Democrat Party want to play any other role except a constructive one in helping to solve the national crisis. So I'm sure that we want to get through this crisis in a united fashion.
Despite the pockets of dissent in the party.
There's always are. I mean, there's always are people who are happy, unhappy, whether it's on their own position, on a handling of a situation, or especially handling of a crisis, which is very tricky and very difficult like this. You will open up so many areas where people can criticize how you handle a situation on any given days. So I hope that people, we already see that this is a crisis. You don't need to trample or step on someone who's already facing difficulty day-to-day management already.
But in hindsight, do you think Kun Jurin, as a commerce minister, he's also the leader of the Democrat Party, you think he should have done differently, to at least address the crisis more effectively in the eyes of the public?
This is a difficult
in
one.
Hindsight,
You're asking me to criticize my own boss.
No. I'm sure you must have talked to him. He must have talked to you about discussing the situation.
To be fair, in this kind, when a crisis occurs, you can always look for things to blame. You can always look for things to say, hey, that could have gone better. This could have gone worse. This could have gone better. I think there are things that Kun Jurin could have said to himself, I could have done this better, I could have done this worse, I could have, perhaps do this, do that. But it is not meaningful, or it's not, impactful or a good thing to move forward. I think you can also blame various ministry or blame the Prime Minister if you want to, or blame many people who are in the private sector for doing the wrong things, like hoarding and trading. I mean, this is very naughty and very, illegal. And so you can start nitpicking and blaming everyone here and there. I don't think it's going to be constructive for now to pinpoint where it could go right or wrong, because all of these are connected and interrelated on some of the matters. So I do not blame any one particular ministry. I do not blame one particular minister.
But he happens to bear a brunt of the blame. You know that, right?
Because originally he took the responsibility to see the pricing, because the internal, the Department of Internal Trade looks after the internal pricing and the quantity. But one thing, if it could have gone right or could have gone done better, I think is the general public communication that comes from the government itself to be more integrated in the efforts, to be an integrated effort from day one. That is a huge crisis facing us. The communication needs to come from one line, not from one ministry. The other ministry say this, the other ministry counter with this, and then you get the Prime Minister's office saying this, and you get the various experts saying this and that. I just hope the channels of communication could have come better from one centralized government area. That way people will not get panicked over the mask or the use of the mask, because as we now know, using the mask doesn't mean you're going to be safe from COVID.
There is proposal by opposition that they like to have special session to discuss the way or the strategy to cope with the crisis of COVID-19. Do you think it would be the right way?
And you bring 500 people into one room? I thought the government wants to just ban 50 people gathering. I'm not sure. Maybe a virtual meeting. Maybe a virtual meeting, a virtual discussion. To be honest with you, I think the people in charge know what is needed to be done. Now it's time for the leader in charge to make a tough decision. Let me make this clear. This is not an easy decision, and there are trade-offs, there are balances. Either way, government will get criticized from different groups. But as you say correctly, to begin with, saving lives and preventing the virus from spreading is a priority. So whatever it takes for that to happen, is what is needed to be done, and you need a strong leadership to just, get this through.
Thank you very much, Prinn, for sharing your insight, and especially on economic perspective of this crisis of COVID-19. Thank you. ขอบคุณค่ะ
Thank you. ขอบคุณครับ
And regarding the situation all over the world, right now at St. Peter's Square in Vatican, the whole scene is so different. So let's take a look how Pope, during the pilgrim yesterday in Vatican, the atmosphere is totally different. It's quite empty.
It's the empty streets of Rome, huh?
Yes.
And very something we have never seen before.
Yes, it's at St. Peter's Square. At the Vatican, normally tens of thousands of visitors will hope to see Pope Francis, especially on Sunday. But the view was quite different, as you can see, because the government enforced drastic measures taken by Italian government and the Vatican. And on Sunday, there was reported that the death toll officially in Italy shooting up from 368 to 1,809 people, more than half of all the cases recorded outside China. The other place in Europe is London Street is quite empty as well, especially at the streets of Westminster in London were empty amidst the ongoing coronavirus outbreak across Europe. Total cases in the UK is about 1,391. New cases just one day is 330, and total death in the UK is 35. For Monday, Prime Minister Boris Johnson will address the media to ensure people are informed about how to protect themselves. So UK Prime Minister is planning to address to the whole nation. So that's what's happening in Europe, especially in Vatican and London. It's very empty.
All right.
Yes. And thank again, Kun Prinn, for joining us. And that's all from Thai PBS World tonight. So we can meet again tomorrow from 7 o'clock. For tonight, Kun Thep Chai Yong, Me Natha Gomonwatin, and Kun Prinn Panichpakdi have to say goodbye for now. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ